Great crowd, great crowd. Okay. Afternoon. My name is Gary Harris. I'm Managing Director for the Center for Sustainable Communities. We're about making communities greener, cleaner, healthier, safer, and more climate resilient through equity and environmental justice. And welcome to the best lunch and learn session of all the sessions that you could have chosen. Thanks a lot for coming here. Imagine that you're living in a coastal city and the land is sinking and the seas are rising and you're getting storm surge, daylight flooding, tornadoes and hurricanes and all kinds of stuff. How can we protect our populations, particularly our vulnerable populations, from that sort of harm? How do we build resilience into a coastal community, which faces those sorts of challenges? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about community research projects. We're going to talk about how to use NASA data. And we're going to talk about how to use some NASA tools as well, in making our coastal communities more resilient. So NASA has all kinds of tools and data and satellites revolving the Earth, and so we ask ourselves, can NASA data contribute to the understanding and addressing coastal resilience and environmental justice? Well, if you look at Hampton Roads, Virginia, or the southeastern portion of Virginia, using some of that NASA data and satellite power, we can. The map here shows clearly a disproportionate share of the persons living in this community are underserved, lower income, et cetera, et cetera. And then you look at also here. The map shows, what's the sea level surface in intersecting that population region here. So that's what we're talking about today. This region of the country, again, facing increasing sea level rise, increasing storm surges, and other, again, climate imposed hazards on this section of the state and also community as well. So can NASA data contribute to the understanding and addressing coastal resilience and climate justice? Well, yes, it can, And here's how we did it. And so how would you design a project to determine if NASA data could be useful to coastal EJ communities? Well, the first thing you want to do is select a partner who's kind of knowledgeable of NASA data and also the tools as well, and maybe lives in one of those coastal communities. Next up, you want to choose an approach, and the approach that we use is called just science or justice science, where we're using science, technology, engineering, data science research to come up with just solutions to mitigate social, climate, and environmental impacts as well. So it's basically community participatory research. But then there are guidelines which are in place which guide that sort of research. And these communities are always saying, well, why are you researching me? Why is it always me? You're coming to me asking these questions. So we have to be poised in doing this, in that when we go to the people, we need to live with the people. We need to learn from them, love them, and start with what they know and build on what they have. So in our approach in Hampton Roads, we're using this sort of model in our community participatory research as well. So there's also a relevant notion here of empowerment science. And empowerment science says, hey, our relationships began centuries ago with many forms of exploitations and recent extraction by academics. And also that in our communities we have many agendas and we need to recognize those. And also empowerment science says, hey, recognize and value the power already in community instead of trying to bring it to them. And it also says that seek and value community knowledge and expertise in the community instead of trying to bring the knowledge and expertise to them. So again, NASA satellite data comes from this abundant, robust orbital array of satellites, everything from temperature, participation, and seismic occurrences, etc. So all that data is being collected by those satellites. But how can communities use that data? Most communities that don't understand, how the data is derived from the satellites and what type of data it is, how they can gain access to it, et cetera, et cetera. But in coastal communities, it's extremely important that we use not only the satellite data, but the tools themselves. So great partners now. Now what do we do? Within the context of community engaged research principles and such. Again, we go to the people. We live with them. We learn from them. We love them. And we start with what they know and then build on what they have. So in Atlanta, again, looking at this notion of how we empower our communities via NASA data and such, the first thing we did was, okay, again, using these principles was to hold community workshops. Matter of fact, we had several community workshops that we hosted. The next thing we do is share the type of data that NASA collects and publicly available tools. And so we went there and showed them the satellites. We showed them the type of data that NASA collects, and then how NASA uses the data as well and available tools. The next thing we did was say, hey, okay, we discussed the climate predictions on a global scale. Okay, we know that temperatures is rising. We know that seas are surging. Et cetera, et cetera. So we talked about these things on a global scale. And then we asked residents, what do you think about the impacts of climate change would be in your community? So now they know what the NASA data is that the satellites collect. Now they know what climate change is on a global scale. So now we ask them, well, what do you think of the impacts of climate change in your community? So we gamified this, okay, and we gave them this card here that you see there. And they went through and they did a bingo basically, and they voted and in that way, they themselves decided, what are the climate impacts in their community via this bingo game. So again, here you can see the community residents doing this. Again, they're being informed by the NASA data. They're looking at global climate change impacts, and then they're looking down in their community, what are their impacts as well. So this is what the bingo card looked like. And also what happened was they went back, after they went through the bingo card, they went back through and prioritized what they thought the impacts were. And this is what the entire data set looks like here from their observations. Again, they're looking at air quality and water and green space. This is all in their community, again, based on their knowledge of NASA data and based on their knowledge of global impacts. So it's flooding and food and community experiences. So this is all that these communities see. So then they went back and prioritized this as well, okay, extracting, what they thought was the top impacts, and it came out to be health and well-being. So this is the same thing what we're going to do in Hampton Roads as well. And then we took those impacts and we mapped them here as well, so they could see graphically what those impacts look like. So in Virginia, we have a regional planning for climate resilience. And also we just had the first Virginia State Climate Assessment, which came out in November to 2025, which really spoke to how vulnerable those communities are in southeast Virginia and what actions can be taken as a result of that. And now also that same assessment is being supported by NASA satellite data. So this is the Hampton Roads Regional Climate Context here. We have the fastest sea level rise on the U.S. East Coast. and that's both by climate and by land subsidence, the fastest on the East Coast. Okay, we have large temperature changes and increase in extreme heat events that pose increased threats to communities as well. So that's health risk and labor disruptions and crop stress as well. So out of this, we created the Hampton Roads Coastal Resilience Project. And it was NASA Langley and 6 community partners, along with a bunch of other folks who you see here shortly. But the partners are the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, the cities of Hampton, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, municipal governments, and also us, the Center for Sustainable Communities. The project will inform the Commonwealth resiliency plans and also decision support tools as well. But the method in which we're going to go about this is that we're going to inform stormwater management best practices with downscaled, high-resolution flood modeling outputs based on projections of sea level rise increases of both storm surge as well as routine recurrent flooding. That's the first thing we can do. The second thing we can do is integrate the NASA RASI data to inform the Virginia Commonwealth projects and programs to enhance flood risk resilience in Hampton Roads. Okay, so that's what we're doing with this Hampton Roads Resilience Projects. The impact will be to build capacity and co-generate tools with local decision makers to advance flood risk resiliency and ecosystems and infrastructure and activities throughout Hampton Roads, Virginia. It would also support economic development, zoning decisions, specific adaptations, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we're using RASI NASA data, and we're informing our models here to about sea level rise projections and storm surge, and again, informing stormwater management and other aspects of life in Hampton Roads as well. So the project is going to use NASA Earth observations to build resilience to extreme flooding events and temperatures, resulting in integrated Virginia Commonwealth coastal resiliency plans with decision support systems to directly support community efforts to adapt increasing coastal and advance the resiliency of populations, ecosystems, infrastructures, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we have 3 focus areas here, and those include stormwater management, economic development, and also adaptations for coastal hardening, including wetland restoration, dredging, nature-based solutions, green engineering, et cetera, et cetera. And here's the list of partners who are doing this, including us, the Center for Sustainable Communities, which is NASA, Old Dominion, the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, Florida International University, Hampton Roads Planning District, and those municipal governments. So again, what we're doing is we're taking NASA data and informing models such that we're building coastal resiliency into communities through stormwater management, through economic development, and also through adaptations resulting in coastal hardening, such as nature-based solutions, et cetera. So this is a NASA subsidence study that was done at NASA Langley and throughout Hampton Roads. It basically illustrates here through radar applications what's happening in terms of land subsidence at the base and also areas throughout Hampton Roads as well. And besides that, we have the coastal flood risk factors with the combination of climate change causing seas to rise greater than 3 millimeters per year and land subsidence to 2 to 10 millimeters per year from isostatic glacial rebound and aquifer withdrawal. The low-lying areas is experiencing the fastest rate of sea level rise on the East Coast. Fastest rate of sea level rise on the East Coast. As a matter of fact, sea level rise accounted for an increase of 12 inches from 1970 to 2025, and may rise an additional 12 inches by 2050. So again, lots of concerns here with low-lying Hampton Roads, lots of impacts, as we saw before, on coastal communities, and particularly those underserved communities there as well. So that's why we're doing this. We're taking the NASA data, we're informing the models, we're looking at stormwater management, we're looking at economic development, we're looking at adaptations, ways to harden our resilience against this threat of, again, land subsidence as well as sea level rise. So here's our partners who's working on this. We have the screening and spatial targeting group, and some of the folks there. You can see add up Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's a future scenario modeling with Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, some tools from NASA, their power tool, et cetera. Then the data integration and risk assessment, the satellite observations there, and then support community resilience with the cities and municipalities and our group as well. And if you look below here, you see some of the major tasks which those folks are doing. So again, we're looking at three different outcomes of the study, and we're taking 4 flood scenarios and informing existing models. And so we're looking at flood scenario 1, which is 2003 Hurricane Isabel, will be modeled as the most significant storm event impacting Hampton Roads. Flood scenario 2, 2011 Hurricane Irene, will also be modeled as a recent storm surge inundation baseline with greater remote sensing opportunities for input and data validation. Flood scenario 3, 2016 Hurricane Matthew, will be simulated as a combined storm surge, tidal, and heavy rainfall event. And then flood scenario 4 was 29, the Nor'easter, Veterans Day Nor'easter, will be simulated to assess the impact of an event with higher duration of compound flooding compared to that of tropical storms. So again, we're taking these 4 scenarios, we're informing our models, and from there, we're coming up with actions to take, which will inform resiliency plans, which will inform municipal governments on what actions to take as well. Okay? And here we have the Virginia Virginia Coastal Resilience Web Explorer, which talks about the impacts from all of this. From all of this, so we can see here that in Hampton Roads, we can see here the impact level, where it's relative to Virginia very high, again along the coast, along to some of the major waterways here, and these are impacts to natural, coastal, and aquatic environments that provide fish and wildlife and habitat and water quality and flood reduction benefits and numerous other ecosystem services in the surrounding area. So again, we're looking at these scenarios here, and figuring out, what are going to be the impacts in the areas as well, using this Explorer tool as well. So we're also going to use environmental data from a group called RASI, and we'll talk about RASI in a second. But the project will provide Hampton Roads with communities with downscale analysis ready data, including but not limited to temperature and precipitation and heating and cooling days and solar radiations and winds and extreme heat and wet bulb temperatures and vegetation indices. This is all data coming from RASI, which is going to be used to inform this model. And again, also here from the Virginia Coastal Resiliency Digital Twin website, again, we have gauges around Hampton Roads, which measure stuff in real time, and also sea level rise impacts, as studies done by Norfolk as well. And then we're going to utilize not only existing models and scenarios and all of that, we're going to use some of these other NASA informed modeling tools, such as the Global Flood Response Tool, and all these other flood mapping and forecasting tools as well. We can utilize those, but also we saw that a part of this was community engagement and community empowerment. So we've had a number of events so far to get the community ready for this, and also get their feedback on this as well. We just had a climate and energy resilience town hall meeting in Portsmouth on last weekend. We had roundtable topics on energy affordability, energy equity, climate policy resilience, mitigation, climate justice, and we had our NASA scientists there with their models and maps. So the community was able to talk to the NASA scientists one-on-one about their models and give them some real insight on what they thought were some of the things that they should focus on with their model analysis, et cetera. We had over 50 people there. It was a great opportunity, again, for NASA scientists to talk directly with community residents and policy experts as well. And this is RASI here. You know, they're part of this consortium, and they provide the latest earth science research to help stakeholders to adapt risk in timely and effective ways. Here's some of the activities that they do. We talked about the downscale modeling before. They help to do that. They do some of the downscale and develop tailored risk information using NASA models, et cetera, et cetera. And then the RASI has working groups. We're part of the working groups on energy and infrastructure, extreme weather events, wildfires, water, flooding events, et cetera. So again, this RASI data is going to be used to inform the models as well, and again, as well as informs some of the already in place resiliency plans by the state and also local municipalities. Again, this is one of the tools that we're going to use, the Power Dev tool as well. And just to give you an example of who RASI works with, that they work with the NASA centers and their master planners, linking climate risk information to infrastructure resilience planning. They work with folks like Con Ed, partner with Con Ed to understand how compound events will continue to impact the power grid, and with us in Hampton Roads as well. So again, you know, it boils down to community empowerment, getting folks together in a roundtable discussion, informing scientists so they have better modeling, better analysis, better resilience plans, and better outcomes for communities as well. And I'm missing a slide, but that's okay. So that's my presentation. Again, it's all about what we're doing in Hampton Roads and how we're doing it and who's doing it. And thank you very much. Great question, and the question was basically, what are some of the measures out there that can be taken to increase participation from community in events like this, and also some significant projects like this as well? What are some of the incentives that can catalyze those sorts of actions? Well, one, you want to hold things like this in community, okay? And here, again, our town hall meeting was held at a church. And as we know, churches are trusted messengers in communities. They're anchor institutions in communities as well, that they're familiar, access is easy, et cetera, et cetera. And the next thing you want to do is that when you're selling it, you know, you want to ensure that they understand, why is this important to me? Why should I care about this? You know, that sort of thing. So in your social media, in your outreach, you know, in your dialogue with folks, in your flyers, you know, you should always be communicating, why is this important to me? You know, et cetera. You know, the next thing is, you know, you really want to have some of your elected officials to show up, because if they see those folks showing up, then folks will naturally say, "Oh, okay, well this must be important. There's Councilman so and so. He's here." So we need to make sure that we have folks in our local governments showing up as well. Oh, the next thing you want to do is if there are any incentives, sometimes we have to offer a small token of kindness, a gift card, et cetera, for folks showing up as well. And then you want to make sure that your message is being carried out there by trusted messengers, a broad swath of trusted messengers. Not only the faith community, but also, folks like in the African American community, there's the fraternities and sororities, there's civic leagues and such. There's associations like Kiwanis, et cetera, that folks are familiar with, and trust, et cetera. So you want to get those folks on your side as well. And then, you just sometimes got to walk the community and meet people where they are, and talk with them one-on-one, and let them know, why this is so important and why they need to attend, and why this really matters, meeting people where they are, is one way of doing this as well. In Atlanta, we did a radio show. We got the most popular, no righteous fact, one of the most popular radio stations in the Atlanta area, and we asked them to do a show, on climate, and they did it, and they loved it, and we entitled it "Why Our Community Must Care About Climate." So they did one show, then they did another show, then they did another show. Then 14 shows later, we had reached 5 million people, via the radio, via a mass audience that it attracts. And not only that, the radio show reaches the urban audience, okay, who wouldn't normally hear this stuff. So that's another way. So hopefully I've given you some insight there. Any other questions? Okay. So I'll come back next year and I'll tell you about our progress. This is actually a $2 million grant from NOAA, and NASA's leading it. So we have NASA Goddard, we have NASA Langley, we have the Climate Research Center out of Columbia University, which is NASA affiliation. They're really leading this and such, but we expect some great things and some great science to come out of this as well. Thank you so much.